It's the Wilk Report. I'm Uncle Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. Got some news for you on the Cobra Kai and Shazam fronts. Let's go ahead and start with Cobra Kai. Entertainment Weekly teases a new Season 2 trailer that shows a Daniel and Johnny rematch. Unfortunately, my computer's not loading videos for some reason, so please bear with me. But here's the relevant paragraph. When Cobra Kai exec producer Hayden Schlossberg told EW earlier this year that Season 2 would feature all the fun of soap opera with the action of martial arts, he wasn't kidding. EW has the exclusive first look at the new trailer for YouTube's Premium's Karate Kid sequel, and it is packed with both. On the soap opera side, we have what looks like a budding romance between Samantha, Mary Mouser, and Robbie, Tanner Buchanan, while Sam's ex Miguel, Zolo Mariduena, I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, seems to taken with a new and supremely badass Cobra Kai student named Tori, played by Peyton List. Check out the Season 2 key art, and then it shows the poster, which is just freaking awesome, because instead of the young faces, now we've got their mid-50s faces. Yeah. As for the karate action, where to begin? Now that Daniel Ralph Macchio has opened the Miyagi-Do dojo, his rivalry with Cobra Kai sensei Johnny Lawrence, William Zabka, is only going to intensify. But first, returning fan favorite sensei Crease, Martin Kove, needs to work his way back into Johnny's good graces, which he does by throwing him into a mirror. Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Other kick-butt karate moments in the trailer: Johnny chopping a stack of flaming cement blocks in half, Hawk, played by Jacob Bertrand, fly kicking some poor schmuck into a tree. There's even a full-blown karate melee in a mall food court. But really, it's all dwarfed by this trailer-ending moment. Yeah, and you can see from the GIF that William Zabka and Ralph Macchio are really getting into some Cobra Kai stuff, and I'm really excited for this because the appearance of Martin Kove John Kreese at the end of Season 1, you just know things are going to go from bad to worse for Johnny, because, I mean, he spent entire Season 1, basically trying to climb out of the pit of despair and depression that he's been in for 30 years plus, like 34 years, from the end of the first Karate Kid movie, and really kind of restore Cobra Kai, but also, kind of restore himself in his own honor. And he finally wins a championship after something like 30 years of the dojo being banned from the martial arts tournament. And but it brings him no joy because the cost was too high for him. Potentially losing his son. Seeing that the philosophy he really lived with most of his life is kind of empty and bankrupt, and then all of a sudden, John Kreese shows up after Johnny has said that he's dead. Well, we do know that in Karate Kid 3, John Kreese kind of faked his death in a plot to humiliate Daniel. So, his reappearance here at the end of Season 1 isn't really that much of a surprise, but, for people who were wondering, look, this has got to be some kind of redemption story for Johnny Lawrence, and, it does actually redeem him somewhat, where he realizes, he had a really bad teacher, and, that's why, the Cobra Kai philosophy really, is not all it's cracked up to be for him. Especially, after over 30 years and, seeing what it's led to his life being like, there's a lot of growth and learning, and it seems like the appearance of John Kreese in Season 2 as a major antagonist really kind of starts throwing things back into where they were 30 years ago for Johnny Lawrence. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more badassery here, and I can't wait for it to come on. But getting over into Shazam news, Rebecca Rubin over at Variety.com. Headline, Shazam proves the power of mid-budget superhero movies. And she actually makes a pretty good argument here that I've been maintaining for a while now with regards to big-budget movies, is that you actually don't need that large of one in order to do well. In fact, actually, this kind of demonstrates that, yeah, you really do need to start scaling back on some of these budgets and start focusing on telling stories, because it's the stories that actually bring people to theaters. The special effects are like this wonderful icing on the cake, but if the cake itself is made of shit, then you're not going to have a good time at the box office here. So let me go ahead and read from the article here. DC Comics welcomed another hit with Shazam. Warner Brothers and New Line's latest comic book adventure powered box office charts, debuting with $53 million in North America and $102 million overseas. For many films in superhero space, that start could spell trouble, but for Shazam, its $98 million price tag makes it a win. The DC hero was able to pull off a solid opening weekend ticket sales while spending nearly half of what studios typically spend to produce comic book fare. For that reason, other studios should take notice of Shazam. The film proves to Hollywood that superhero movies can have flexible budgets and entice audiences. Other than Deadpool, which cost under $60 million to produce, the majority of superhero movies arrive with massive price tags and equally outsized expectations. Studios pull out all the stops, shelling out hundreds of millions to dazzle audiences with stunning visual effects and CGI spectacles, which unfortunately are not all that great, because if you look at some of the CGI in Marvel movies, and especially DC, it looks really bad in a lot of places. So let's continue here. That's where films like Justice League and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice got into trouble. The less than adored Justice League brought in $657.9 million in ticket sales worldwide, which would be an impressive haul had the studio not shelled out $300 million in production fees, as well as tens of millions on reshoots. That number doesn't include the hefty marketing and distribution costs it takes to sell audiences on the silver screen experience. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, with $874.6 million globally, just barely clawed its way out of the red. With its trimmer budget, Shazam doesn't need to hit sky-high notes at the box office to ensure a sequel. And, this is something I've been maintaining for a number of years now, where you have to take a look at the total budget of a film. You can't just look at the production costs, because that doesn't tell you everything, okay? If a movie production cost is $100 million or $200 million, okay, and it makes $500 million at the box office, well, that doesn't give you an accurate description of the profit margins, because it takes money to sell and distribute a film to theaters. And then there's merchandising, and then there's home video releases, and now streaming services. You have to take all these into account. So if you're just looking at the production budget alone, you're not getting the full picture. And that's why Shazam may prove far more successful, than, say, pretty much any other DC movie that's slated to come out. Wonder Woman 84 is yet to be released, but that movie was liked better than Batman vs. Superman and Justice League for obvious reasons, in that it wasn't nearly as bad as those two movies. Of course, Zack Snyder, didn't help much by trying to make Superman dark and gritty and, cynical and pessimistic and, full of self-doubt. I mean, Superman rarely doubts himself, at least on the screen. I mean, in comics, yeah, he, there's What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, the comic book, where he, kind of has this crisis of faith where this group of superpowered vigilantes who use, much more lethal measures to fight crime are proving a lot more popular with the public, and he's having a moment of doubt. He goes to talk to his Pa back in Kansas, and just to get some reaffirmation and refresh his resolve. But that's pretty much it. But with Zack Snyder, his approach was just it just got too dark and too gritty, and spending that kind of money telling a story that fundamentally alters the nature of a character that we've grown to love over the past 70, 80 years. I mean, that's a pretty big move, and you're going to risk alienating a lot of the people who made it possible for you to make that movie in the first place. So, but one of the things that seems to be giving Shazam a lot more hope for getting a sequel and even a franchise is that you are focusing more on the story, and you're not spending so much on big flashy special effects that it sacrifices the story. I mean, as much as I liked Black Panther last year, it had a lot of deficiencies that I think could have been compensated for by improving the storytelling and doing away with some of the special effects. I mean, how much did the car chase scene cost that went on for only a few minutes, but had to have cost tens of millions of dollars to pull off? And how much did you spend on CGI and expensive digital cameras that you could have shot on film and save some of your production costs that way, because film actually is less expensive to shoot on for a big budget production than digital, because you have to go out of your way to spend more trying to get the lighting right, because if you don't get it right, then because digital doesn't give you true blacks, you're going to end up using your shadows, and a lot of people just make this mistake. It's it's cheaper to shoot on digital. Well, not necessarily, and not really. So so these are some of the factors that you have to consider when calculating a movie budget. So what I was taught in film school was the rule of thumb: when you're asking for money to make a movie, ask for at least double what you think it'll cost to actually make the movie, because you have to spend at least as much money selling your movie, getting it distributed, tie-in merchandise if there's any merchandise to be produced, like t-shirts or toys or soundtracks or whatever. All that has to get factored in, and having a $98 million budget, and then you've got like $53 million in North America, and then an extra $102 million. I mean, that's a pretty good opening weekend for a movie that had a $98 million price tag. So, I think by the time it finishes its run, it's going to have a pretty nice profit here, and it's going to do well, I think. But I think Hollywood needs to also take a larger lesson for this. In fact, actually, let me quote another paragraph here. Coming on the heels of Aquaman and Wonder Woman, Shazam marks the third comic book win in a row as DC Entertainment continues to punch up against the success of its rival, Marvel Studios. The studio describes Shazam as big, set in the superhero space. Well, yeah, it kind of is. I mean, that's what they've been selling it as, and it seems to be working. It tells the story of Billy Batson, Asher Angel, a young boy who transforms into a fully grown superhero, Zachary Levi, when someone says a magic word. The film was praised for its lighter, more comic approach, deviating from the studio's darker days once navigated by filmmaker Zack Snyder, that polarized fans. Sometimes it pays to have a less apocalyptic tone that doesn't revolve around major cities getting destroyed. And there is a lot of truth in that, actually. You really need to focus on telling more personal stories. It's not about, the big special effects or blowing up planets and killing off half the universe. All that, again, it's icing on the cake. And if the cake sucks, if it's made of shit, all that icing is going to be completely pointless, because no one's going to want to eat the cake. So, but yeah. So, what do you think? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think I'm full of it? Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you looking forward to Cobra Kai Season 2? Are you planning on going to see Shazam? Why or why not? I want to hear about it. If you like what you've heard and you want to hear more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we upload new content. And head over to our Patreon page or subscribe to our page if you want to help support the channel, keep the lights on, and help us bring you more content. This is Micah Wilk for the Wilk Report saying take care, good night, I'm out.